PRA equitable share, 309.5 million as local revenue collections, and facility improvement funds stood at Kenya shilling 184.4 million, and conditional grants and donor funds amounting to Kenya shilling 714.3 million. Mr. Speaker, under Departmental Budget Estimates, the specific details of budget estimates for next year budget per department is as follows. County Assembly, for oversight, legislation and representation expenses, the County Assembly recurrent expenditure stands at Kenya shilling 719 million, which is inclusive of staff, carbon, and mortgages amounting to Kenya shilling 15 million. The development expenditure is Kenya shilling 7 million, funded from the Exchequer for construction of County Assembly Speaker residence and other developmental projects within the Assembly. Mr. Speaker, under the Department of Public Service Management and Administration, the recurrent and development vote has been allocated 395 million and Kenya shilling 22.7 million for financial year 2021-2022 respectively. The recurrent vote includes 17 million allocated for recruitment of enforcement officers. Mr. Speaker, under County Public Service Board, the County Public Service Board has been allocated Kenya shilling 57 million, which is our recurrent expenditures. Mr. Speaker, under the Office of the Governor and Deputy Governor has been allocated Kenya shilling 119 million as recurrent expenditure. The Department of Finance and Economic Planning, the recurrent vote has been allocated Kenya shilling 322 million, including Kenya shilling 30 million meant for recruitment of senior officers, revenue officers, and enforcement officers, whereas the development vote has been allocated Kenya shilling 198.0 million. So the Kenya Devolution Support Program was enhanced to Kenya shilling 102.4 million. To mitigate unforeseen happenings and disasters, the committee appropriated Kenya shilling 20 million under emergency funds, and then funds for debt resolutions, including KRA penalties, has been set aside at Kenya shilling 30.5 million. In the Department of Health Services, Mr. Speaker, the recurrent vote for health services has been allocated Kenya shilling 2.23 billion, and development expenditures of Kenya shilling 441 million. Mr. Speaker, the 441 million will be meant for, one, completion of incomplete health facilities, which will take 53.6 million, and then equipping level 2 and level 3 completed facilities, which will take 10 million, equipping maternity units at all levels, at level 2 and level 3 facilities, which will take 6 million, equipping maternity units at level 2 and 3, which is 6 million, equipping Londiani Lab, 5 million, equipping Fortenan Lab, 5, equipping Roret Lab, 6 million, equipping Kaitu Accident Emergency Center, 5.6, equipping Ainamoi Theatre Phase 2, 4 million, equipping MCH at Kipsite Health Center Phase 1, 5 million, medical shelves for Sigawet Store, 2 million, medical shelves for Londiani Store, 2 million, and then equipping surgical ward, Roret Phase 1, will take 2 million. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, equipping surgical ward at Fortenan will take 2 million. Mr. Speaker, under the Department of Agriculture, the recurrent and development expenditure was allocated 168.5 million and Kenya shilling 396.9 million respectively. The Department of Education, Youth Affairs, Culture and Social Services, the recurrent budget was allocated Kenya shilling 469.6 million and the development vote has been allocated Kenya shilling 186 million respectively. The committee, Mr. Speaker, appropriated Kenya shilling 60 million for the recruitment of 200 ECD caretakers equitably and salary increment in the financial year 2021-2022. Mr. Speaker, this department has also unspent balance for bursary, which stands at 81.9 million. Mr. Speaker, in the Department of Public Works, Roads and Transport, the recurrent vote has been allocated Kenya shilling 91 million, whereas the development vote has been allocated 1.19 billion in the financial year 2021-2022. The Department of Trade, Industrialization, Cooperative Management, Tourism and Wildlife. The recurrent vote has been allocated Kenya shilling 70.9 million, whereas the development was allocated 53.6 million. The Department of Water, Environment, Forestry, Energy and Natural Resources. The recurrent and development vote have been allocated Kenya shilling 131.5 million and Kenya shilling 463.1 million. Mr. Speaker, under the Department of Land, Housing and Physical Planning, the recurrent and development votes have been allocated shilling 92.2 million and Kenya shilling 109.1 million, respectively, in the financial year 2021-2022. This includes allocation for the Litein and Kericho municipal boards. ICT, Mr. Speaker, the recurrent vote has been allocated Kenya shilling 63.3 million, while the development vote has been allocated Kenya shilling 31.1 million. Mr. Speaker, committee observations. The first one is that despite the challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic, the County Assembly observes that the revenue targets can be attained. The second observation, Mr. Speaker, is that physical discipline should be observed at all times to avoid penalties outlined in Section 107(2) of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 as far as equitable share is concerned. Then, Mr. Speaker, the last observation was that unspent balances for the financial year 2021-2022 has been declared by the County Treasury and the Departmental County Executive Committee members for the considerations by the County Assembly. Mr. Speaker, the committee recommends that the stakeholder participation should be considered during the consideration of the county fiscal strategy paper so as to avoid variances when deliberating on the budget estimates. The second recommendation, Mr. Speaker, is that the receivers of revenue, under the guidance of Finance and Economic Planning docket, works hard to meet the revenue targets despite the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. The third recommendation, Mr. Speaker, is unspent balances must be declared by the County Treasury and the Departmental County Executive Committee members on time for purposes of budgeting and continuity of programs. The fourth recommendation, Mr. Speaker, is that each accounting officer initiates procurement procedures as early as possible to facilitate the implementation of development projects in this county. The County Treasury shall adhere to provisions of legislations on the public procurement and asset disposal. Then the last recommendation, Mr. Speaker, is that each county chief officer adhere to the provisions of Section 149 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 to the letter, and that each departmental CC adhere to Section 107 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012. Mr. Speaker, the committee acknowledges and wishes to thank the officers of the Speaker and the Clerk of the County Assembly for the necessary support extended to it in the execution of its mandate. The budget-making process will have been incomplete without the involvement of key stakeholders, namely the County Executive Committee members led by CC Finance and Economic Planning, members of the public, and whom the committee is grateful for their invaluable input. Mr. Speaker, it is now my pleasant duty on behalf of the Budget and Appropriation Committee, pursuant to Standing Order 2216, to table the report of the Kericho County Budget Estimates for the financial year 2021-2022 for consideration by this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I call upon Collins Biagon to second. Thank you. Collins Biagon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. As I second, I would wish to sincerely thank the members of Budget Committee, led by our able chair, Honorable Albert Kipkoech, for the good work they have done. This budget is actually a culmination of very hard-working members and also the dedication of the team that we have in the Budget Committee. So I would wish to pass that appreciation. You also pass that appreciation to your office and the office of the clerk for the facilitation that you always offer to such committees. So I second. Thank you.
Thank you. So, honorable members, I now wish to propose the question, which is that this House approves the report of the Budget and Appropriation Committee on the Kericho County budget estimates for the financial year 2021-2022. Alex Bet.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity that I may also contribute on the budget and the report on the budget estimates for the financial year 2021. First and foremost, Honorable Speaker, let me take this opportunity to congratulate the Budget Committee for doing a very thorough job, and also the chairman, able chairman, Honorable Albert Kipkoech, for leading the budget committee through this very tiring process. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want also to support the report by our able chair, Mr. Speaker, sir, on the budget estimates. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to commend the committee that despite the limited resources that we had to really appropriate, there was every care to make sure that coins went to places that touches on the common mwananchi. Mr. Speaker, sir, an area that I would want to applaud the committee was to remember the recruitment of enforcement officers, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that was by making sure that money was appropriated to recruit part of the team that was trained in Chebwagan. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would also not want to forget to really applaud the committee for also remembering also to put more resources on finance. Remember, Mr. Speaker, sir, for a long time, we have struggled to raise revenue in our county. And one of the reasons that has been an impediment, Mr. Speaker, sir, in raising revenues was the lack of the necessary staff. So this time around, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee was very careful to also appropriate 30 million meant for recruitment of senior officers, and more so, Mr. Speaker, sir, enforcement officer. When you go to various towns, especially in our counties, more so in our two municipalities, Kericho and Litein, you find that we lose a lot of revenue, not because people are not willing to pay, but because we don't have people to enforce the necessary laws. So I think, Mr. Speaker, sir, if we employ the right people, especially the enforcement officer, with the appropriation of this 30 million, I'm sure come next time, Mr. Speaker, sir, when we'll be reading the next budget, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am sure we will have surpassed our revenue targets. Mr. Speaker, sir, we would also want to applaud also at the committee for remembering also to also allocate monies meant also for confirming some of the staffs in our health center. And more so, Mr. Speaker, sir, education, where we have remembered also to recruit more of our ECD teachers. Mr. Speaker, sir, by taking care of those young kids, Mr. Speaker, sir, our future will be luminous. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand here today a happy man, and also, Mr. Speaker, sir, to support the report by our chair. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Alfred Cheriot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity that I may support this budget. Mr. Speaker, sir, first and foremost, let me congratulate all the committees who sat down tirelessly and finally came up with this very nice recommendation. Mr. Speaker, sir, first of all, let me
Yes, Paul Chichiri.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I wish to raise a point of order. The Honorable Alfred Cheruiyot, Mr. Speaker, sir, is not properly dressed. He is wearing a trouser similar to the one used at the posho mill, Mr. Speaker.
Paul Chichiri, before I make any direction or ruling, maybe you can tell us how is that one for the portion? How does the one for the portion mill look like?
Mr. Speaker, sir, we have all gone to the posho mill, Mr. Speaker. So the one at the posho mill, when you're grinding, as the unga leaves as the flour leaves the grinding machine, there's a trouser look-alike that you slap. So just like this one, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll ask the Sergeant at Arms to confirm whether the trousers are worn by, whether it looks like, just come and speak to me. You can inform me. I have been informed that the trouser is okay, so please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for actually defending me. You know, this trouser, we sat down tirelessly, especially yesterday, Mr. Speaker, sir. We never went to church, that is why we never changed even the trouser, because we are so much concerned about this budget. Remember, this is the final, and this is the final budget, Mr. Speaker, sir. We are now going to election period, Mr. Speaker, sir. So it doesn't matter what you hear, what you actually hear, but what is so important is the budget, Mr. Speaker, sir. Next, Mr. Speaker, sir, let me say that revenue collection, those who are receivers of the revenue, Mr. Speaker, sir, despite all the challenges of the pandemic, Mr. Speaker, sir, of Corona, Mr. Speaker, sir, they were able to raise some money. That is why today we are actually happy, and I want to applaud also what we considered about the youth from Japan, Mr. Speaker, sir. So we want to consider these people to make them 150, Mr. Speaker, sir, to be permanent and pensionable, Mr. Speaker, sir. Secondly, we'll consider another 150, Mr. Speaker, sir. And actually, as we were asking votes, Mr. Speaker, sir, one of our manifesto that we were telling the youth, Mr. Speaker, sir, is about the employment. So that is why I am so much happy. And when you go to the road department, I am so happy because 30 wards, Mr. Speaker, sir, has taken lion's share. And maybe let me take this opportunity to say that when we open and maram and grade all roads, Mr. Speaker, sir, they'll open always. And actually, we pray all honorable members who have been elected to be re-elected once again because of this budget. Otherwise, thank you very much, and I support this budget 100%.
Thank you. Honorable William Soy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this chance so that I contribute on this final budget of our term. This is the final term, the final time for elected MCAs, and I know this budget will either bring back these people or take them home. And according to how I've seen, all these MCAs will come back because of this budget. I must thank the budget committee because they consider the Chebwakan youths, which those people, if we could not consider them, they would send us home, all elected MCS. Thank you. I support this budget. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Samiron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to support this budget. Mr. Speaker, sir, unlike other members, Mr. Speaker, sir, I support this budget because this budget reflects the will of the people in the ground, and it does not support our re-election. We are doing this budget purposely as per the need of the people in the ground, because at times even you do a lot of budget and you are not re-elected. Again, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that there are so many things which had not been considered before, like the confirmation of the youths which were trained from Chebwagan, which we have done a noble tax with these honorable members and considered them and factored in the budget, so that also they may see the light of life. Again, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that, as you know, the reason as to why we have put a lot of money in the side of the roads is that a number of roads were open, Mr. Speaker, sir, and a number of them have not been maram. So probably this money which we have put here is now for the completion of maram. What I would only advise Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, and through also the Chair of Budget, is that as we go through this budget, we cannot see the development of maybe projects to be implemented in the side of education, like building of structures like toilets and classroom. Mostly because there is a lot of deficit in the side of education. And as we go back to our community, or where we are elected in, as they will be balancing the budget, I think education will be of questionable, Mr. Speaker, sir. So maybe it will be advised so that we see on how we shall even settle the deficit, so that at least even we make one or two projects in the side of education. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, sir, I say thank you. And I am saying this is not our last budget, Mr. Speaker, sir. We still have supplementaries and other things, and we shall still come back. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity so that I can support the budget. First of all, I would like to applaud the Budget Committee for the good work I've done. The budget was done fairly and equitably. Mr. Speaker, equitably. The only thing I want to add, I want to challenge the Finance Committee concerning or the finance and what do you call the revenue collection, led by our honorable member, Alex Bett, so that we need to raise the revenue so that the coming financial year we can add the budget. I don't have much to say, Mr. Speaker. Just want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity so that I can represent the good people of Kabianga, Chimamulua. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance so that I can support the budget. Having done the calculations and everything, I think we have balanced everything so that each word will not be singled out. So let me just say I support the budget and the committee for the work we did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this chance also to support the budget. But first of all, let me congratulate the Budget Committee for the tireless work they did until they have come with a budget. Let me also applaud the County Assembly members for reviewing the standing orders, cite that 30 members or to be in the Budget Committee. That you see now, people are not complaining because everybody was seeing how the budget was going on and how the allocations were given to each and every ward. So I'm very happy because we don't complain. Everybody was able to see his budget. So may I also urge only the Finance Committee that we have done the budget. You know that there was a pandemic. The revenue collection is very low, and we cannot spend what you don't have. So we are urging now that you fast-track the process of first employing the revenue officers who are going to collect for us the revenue so that we can now start spending. Let me also thank the committee for considering the Jebwagan youth. If there is anybody who is happy, I'm very happy because we are soon going for the next election and they would ask us why we took to the Jebwagan. They were put a lot of mud and they have not been given something. Let me also applaud for the ECD teachers. Our teachers are really suffering, and they are the ones who bring our children, who give them foundation. So if we are told we get the revenue again, we still have another budget. And I know we are all coming back. So we are going to struggle. We make another budget, which will be now better than even this one, and even employ more people. Otherwise, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. We are very happy for the budget, as I support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to give I want to wish the committee that we've actually done a very good job. And the only place that I would want to also thank the committee for making a good progress, especially the parts on the issue of health sector. But as Speaker, as we speak, I'm told the medicine in our public dispensaries are already out of order, and I don't know what we can do. Because you see, I would also want maybe tomorrow when the Waziri Finance appear to County Assembly, that I would want maybe if in case they would actually hasten the supply of medicine, the better. That is the main challenge that we are really facing currently in our local dispensaries at home. Number two, I would want also to comment on the education. Now that, Mr. Speaker, we've made a very good progress on the good allocation
of recruitment or confirmation of ECD teachers, caretakers. And I want to say, according to those ones who are going to be recruited, I'm told around 200 caretakers are going to be confirmed on PNP basis. That is a plus. And I want also to thank the Honorable Chairman from Chairman Education for actually standing firm together with honorable members who are from the Budget Committee. For actually they stood firm, and we all made sure that they also get something. Because you see, currently I'm told they are usually getting around 8 to 9,000 a month. So, Bwana Speaker, and that is on contract basis. But then now, if they'll be confirmed, I'm sure they'll get something that will actually be had and deliver to our good children that we sire in our villages. So with those, Bwana Speaker, I want to say thank you very much. And I want to say, Chairman Finance, everybody is looking at you. So maybe now is the right time that you pull up your socks and move very strong. Just like the way when you were campaigning the other time I saw you in Litain, you were really on very high and you are really very strong. So continue with that spirit and don't relent on your duties. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me this chance to contribute on behalf of the people of Cheblangat, whom I'm representing. Let me first, Mr. Speaker, thank the Budget Committee for the tireless job they have done. And I'm among the members who are doing this budget. My chairman, my able chairman for finance, I would like to appreciate your job, because if not your tireless job you did in the side of finance as the chairperson, we won't be able to employ these Chebwagan youths. So I want to encourage our chairman. Our chairman education, we want to say that we can employ ECT teachers equally in all the other words, Mr. Speaker, because it depends upon the recruitment or the enrollment of our pupils in our various wards. So we have got some schools which doesn't have enough teachers. So, Mr. Speaker, when we sat down, we saw there is need that we add some 200 on permanent and pensionable terms, but the remaining lot will be considered very soon. It depends upon the availability of funds. So, Mr. Speaker, all these MCS, the 30 MCS who are on budget, they did a good job. And we must encourage and appreciate each and every one of us, because we have got limited resources and we have to share these resources in Kericho County equitably, Mr. Speaker, because we are the people elected us to represent them in various wards. So, Mr. Speaker, as we are forging ahead towards the general election, that one can, we are not fearing it, everything, Mr. Speaker, because when we read the Bible in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 13, the Bible says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So this is not the last budget. In fact, on my, I believe that I must be in this assembly for the rest of my term, because there is no limit. So long as I'm working diligently, the way I swore in the first time, I should do so. And even my colleagues, they should do so in their wards. So there should be nobody who will come and attest and say that the Kericho MCS have done this or so. We are the one in this county assembly, and we are the one to pass the budget. So the Raya have to wait patiently for us to go and do this work. My last comment, Mr. Speaker, the problem with this budget, 8.6 billion, is the procurement, the other side of the coin, that is the executive. They wait until the last minute, They do more procurements, but we have unspent balances every year. So, Mr. Speaker, we are urging the executive, led by His Excellency, the Governor, to see to it that all their CECs and CEOs to implement immediately this budget is passed. We don't want hear and say or street talks. We want those people to come to the ground. They are sitting in their offices. If they don't know, take for example the CEO, Education, Honorable Anthony Koskei. He is sitting in the office the whole year without even attending one of the wards to attest the challenges faced by our pupils. So I want to encourage members that no stone will remain undone. Even though this is the last year before we go to general election, no stone will remain undone. Any CEC or any CEO who sleeps on his or her job will do something rigorously. Because we have to call a spade, not a big spoon. And there is only one person whom we fear, that is God. But all the other people, we have to face one another head on. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the budget, and I urge the procurement to do their part immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe before I call the next speaker, the microphone can be sanitized. Eric Bet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute on behalf of the people of Kericho Ward. I want to say that I support this report. Mr. Speaker, I want to say the reason why I support this is because if you look at the annexure on the program's execution schedule for 2021-2022, it reflects the wishes of all of us in terms of areas of priority as MCS, and this goes in hand to respond to the needs of our people who elected us. So I want to thank the committee, and I think this is a good way to move forward in this last financial year. So I do support this report, and I would wish to encourage and ask all the chairs of sectoral committees to ensure that once we pass this budget, they at least ensure that they take on every executive member to implement this report, because it is good to have figures like this, but then again, it's good to implement. So I wish to support and ask all the members of chairs of all committees to support this particular report for various committees. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, so that I can put my comments, Mr. Speaker, concerning this budget, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first I want to thank the Committee on Budget, Mr. Speaker, for the work they did, Mr. Speaker. This work was not an easy work, but they dedicated themselves, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for all honorable members who are on budget to travel all the way to Mombasa without failing, Mr. Speaker, and concentrate on the meeting, Mr. Speaker, on ventilation on this budget, Mr. Speaker, shows the commitment and the spirit these honorable members they had, Mr. Speaker. Again, Mr. Speaker, on Sunday, yesterday, Mr. Speaker, they suspend all their activities, Mr. Speaker, to come and ensure that everything was put in order, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Committee on Budget and more so the Chairman, Mr. Speaker. I want to say that I support this budget 100%, Mr. Speaker. Although we are somehow disadvantaged, Mr. Speaker, but on alone, I support Mr. Speaker because it's a win-win, Mr. Speaker. The reason why I'm saying it's a win-win, Mr. Speaker, is because I'm one member who is an advocate of the basic first team, Mr. Speaker. And in basic first team, Mr. Speaker, we were advocating for the basic need, Mr. Speaker, which is reflected in this budget, Mr. Speaker. When you go to the schedule on this budget, Mr. Speaker, you will see most of the members allocated their funds, or they did allocation on the priority areas, Mr. Speaker, which is water, which is health, which is roads, Mr. Speaker, and boda and pasari, Mr. Speaker. These are the things which touches the common mwananchi, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, after all honorable members focus on the basic things, Mr. Speaker, there is tremendous change in our areas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when we were elected, Mr. Speaker, all honorable members was having a difficult task, Mr. Speaker, when somebody passes on, Mr. Speaker. These honorable members was spotted that so-and-so has passed on, we need a grader to come and construct a road. But since honorable members focus on the basic needs, Mr. Speaker, and basic items, Mr. Speaker, like roads, I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, these honorable members are sitting relaxed, because everybody must reach his or her home, because road network has been improved. And that is an indication, Mr. Speaker, that these honorable members have done a lot of work, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what I want to echo on this budget, Mr. Speaker, which should be put on record, Mr. Speaker, is this budget, Mr. Speaker, more human resource will be added to the county, Mr. Speaker. When you see on the Department of PSM, Mr. Speaker, on this budget, Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Budget allocated money to have to a tune of over 17 million, if I'm not wrong, Mr. Speaker, for the recruitment of more than 150 enforcement officers, Mr. Speaker. The total budget was approximately 32, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, over 780 enforcement officers was taken to a training center in Chebwagan, Mr. Speaker. And after that, Mr. Speaker, the governor had promised to employ them, Mr. Speaker. But due to the challenges, Mr. Speaker, we had employed some few. So I want to thank the committee, because allocating such money will absorb a certain percentage, Mr. Speaker, which is significant, Mr. Speaker. And on addition, on addition of the 150 which will be employed by the BSM, Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Finance will again employ around 90 enforcement officers, Mr. Speaker. That means we'll employ a total of more than 250 enforcement officers of our boys whom we had taken to Chebwagan, Mr. Speaker. And that should be a celebration to these honorable members, Mr. Speaker. Because if there was a thorn in the flesh of these honorable members, it's the Chebwagan youths, Mr. Speaker. So employing 240, at least, Mr. Speaker, will give these guys a relief, Mr. Speaker. Again, on the Department of Finance, we will employ the revenue officers, Mr. Speaker, senior revenue officers, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and on that again, Mr. Speaker, it will assist on revenue collection, Mr. Speaker. Again, on the issue of ECD, Mr. Speaker, because I want to touch this one, Mr. Speaker. This committee allocated money for recruitment of over 200 ECD caretakers, Mr. Speaker, which will be distributed equitably, Mr. Speaker. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, although we might not take more on the development side, but Mr. Speaker, adding the human resource, Mr. Speaker, is a plus, because when in my rough calculation, more than over 10 or 15 people will be employed per ward, Mr. Speaker. That is a plus, and it's the timing again where we are adding to the electioneering period, Mr. Speaker, because when these people employ those people, Mr. Speaker, it will be a plus on their side. So, without saying much more, Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you to the Committee on Budget for critical deliberation, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the honorable members because of the generous contribution which they assisted the 8 honorable members who could have been disadvantaged. So on behalf of those honorable members, I want to thank you, honorable members, for having a generous heart, Mr. Speaker. And I will not go without mentioning my able DML, Mr. Speaker. He did a great work, Mr. Speaker. I should thank you because you assisted the great people of Chilchila. I want to say thank you, another honorable member. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you, Anthony Ruto.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity so that I can also be able to contribute on this very important report. First and foremost, I want to thank the entire committee on budget.
Order, Honorable Anthony Ruto.
Yes.
I've just been informed that we are past 5, and we needed to have extended our period for the sittings 15 minutes ago. So since we haven't done so, you could proceed on as I consult with the chair of budget to see a way in which we will proceed. Either we put the question tomorrow or we'll see what we're going to do. But continue in the meantime.
I thank you. And more so chairman of budget committee for his patience and also commitment as far as budget process is concerned. I want only to mention some few things which is a score in this particular budget. One is recruitment of ECD teachers. As equitably as we are aware, some of our ECD centers do not have teachers. Teachers that are working there are being employed by parents. As you are also aware, most of our ECD centers have one teacher which is employed by the county government of Kericho, meaning that we have not attained the required standard of 2 ECD teachers in every ECD center so that they can be able to take care of BB1 and BB2. So I want to say, I want to support this budget because they have considered those areas that do not have ECD teachers. And we expect the Department of Education to come up with an updated staff establishment in our ECD centers so that at the end of the day when the 200 ECD teachers are recruited, are posted to those schools. Another score for this particular budget is salary increment for ECD teachers. In fact, they have stagnated a lot in the same grade for a long time. So it is a score for the department to consider to increase salaries for ECD teachers so that at the end of the day, their morale can be enhanced. Another score, as far as this budget is concerned, is recruitment of enforcement officers so that at the end of the day, they can be able to assist in revenue collection. And lastly, Honorable Speaker, sir, even though there are so many scores in this particular, which has been scored in this particular budget. I want to mention Department of Roads. We have allocated a lot of money in the Department of Roads. As we are all aware again, that this one is priority number one as far as the needs of our people is concerned, so that they can be able to access different parts of their country. So I want to say, as I stand here, I want to say I support this particular budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chairman Budget. You may respond so that we can put the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank honorable members for supporting this document and the report. And I want to say that the bottom line is that the chief officers on the other side, they are supposed to fast track preparation of procurement plan so that at least this document can be implemented as early as the 20 next month. Otherwise, thank you, and I thank you.
So, honorable members, I now put the question, which is that this House approves the report of the Budget and Appropriation Committee on the Kericho County budget estimates for the financial year 2021-2022. Will as many members are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many members are of the contrary opinion say nay? So there is have it. Thank you, honorable members. We adjourn until tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Thank you.